You would be hard-pressed to convince me that Caitlin Clark refusing to join the unrivaled basketball league doesn't have something to do with this. The basketball world just witnessed its biggest earthquake of 2024. Nobody saw it coming. Kelsey Plum, the WNBA superstar, dropped a nuclear bomb on the unrivaled league. First, Caitlin Clark said no. Now Plum walks away. But here's the real shocker. Inside sources hint this might trigger a mass exodus. Players are whispering behind closed doors. Team owners are panicking. The league's survival hangs by a thread. What's actually happening? Behind this sudden departure, the truth will stun you. You won't believe what's happening in women's basketball right now. The unrivaled league, this brand new 3x3 basketball venture that was supposed to revolutionize the sport, is facing what might be its biggest crisis yet. I've been digging deep into this story for hours, and what I've uncovered is absolutely mind-blowing. Let me take you back just a few weeks ago when Caitlin Clark, the most electrifying player in college basketball history, shocked everyone by turning down the unrivaled league. At that moment, there were whispers in the basketball world that this could spell trouble. But nobody, and I mean nobody, predicted what would happen next. Just yesterday, Kelsey Plum, one of the WNBA's brightest stars, dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the entire basketball community. She announced on Instagram that she's walking away from the unrivaled league. Now, this isn't just any player we're talking about. This is Kelsey Plum, three-time All-Star, averaging nearly 18 points per game, one of the most marketable faces in women's basketball. Now, if she'd have played, do I believe that her games would have drawn a fairly decent viewership? Maybe 500,000 people would have tuned in. But let's be real. Does any of us really expect this league to draw more than, say, 150,000 viewers? The implications of this departure are staggering. When you look at the numbers, Plum was averaging 17.8 points and 4.2 assists while making 2.93 assists per game last season. These aren't just good stats. They're elite numbers that made her one of the most watchable players in women's basketball. To put it in perspective, she was selected during the by Andrew Wade, but here's where things get really interesting. I've been speaking with sources close to the situation, and what they're telling me is absolutely shocking. Apparently, there was massive uncertainty behind the scenes even before Plum's announcement. Several players were already expressing concerns about the league's viability without Caitlin Clark's star power. The timing couldn't be worse for the unrivaled league. They're trying to launch the new sports product in an already crowded marketplace. And now they've lost not just one, but two potential franchise faces. Industry experts I've spoken with are calling this a potential death blow to the league's prospects. It's not going to draw what WNBA games are drawing, and one could argue that's not great in a lot of cases. If Caitlin Clark's not involved, let's break down why this is such a massive deal. First off, the unrivaled league was banking heavily on star power. They needed big names to draw viewers, sponsors, and legitimacy. With Clark saying no, they still had Plum as one of their marquee attractions. But now, they're looking at a situation where two of their biggest potential draws are gone. The timing of Plum's announcement is particularly interesting. She cited wanting more time for myself this offseason in her post. But my sources are painting a very different picture. One insider, speaking on condition of anonymity, told me that there were serious concerns about the league's financial projections after Clark's rejection. Think about it. The WNBA, an established league with decades of history, averages around 500,000 viewers per game. The unrivaled league, without Clark, was projected to draw maybe 150,000 to 200,000 viewers per game. And that was before Plum's exit. Now, those numbers could be even lower. The ripple effects are already being felt throughout the women's basketball community. Social media is buzzing with speculation about who might be the next to withdraw. One prominent basketball analyst tweeted, "This could be the beginning of a mass exodus." And they might be right. But here's where it gets even more concerning. A'ja Wilson, another superstar, is also not participating. That's three major names, Clark, Plum, and Wilson, all not involved. In the business of sports, star power isn't just important. It's everything. Without these names, the league's entire business model could be in jeopardy. Let's talk about what this means for the Laces team specifically. They were supposed to feature a stellar lineup, including Courtney Williams, Kayla McBride, Elisa Thomas, Stephanie Dolson, and Kate Martin alongside Plum. Now they're scrambling to fill a massive void in their roster. The financial implications are staggering. The league was reportedly offering significant ownership stakes to its star players. These weren't just playing contracts. They were partnerships designed to give players a vested interest in the league's success. With Plum's departure, those ownership structures might need to be completely reconsidered. I've also learned that several other players are now reconsidering their positions. Think about it like this. If you're a professional athlete, you want to be where the spotlight is brightest. With each star that drops out, that spotlight dims a little more. The league was supposed to be revolutionary. A 3x3 format, faster-paced games, more action-packed entertainment. But without the star power to back it up, it's looking more and more like a risky venture. One sports marketing expert I spoke with compared it to trying to launch the NFL without Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Travis Kelsey. Let me share some numbers with you that really put this in perspective. The league was planning to have games in venues that seat around 850 fans. That's smaller than many high school gymnasiums in Texas. Now, they were banking on digital viewership to make up for the small venues. But without star power, those digital numbers are looking increasingly questionable. Fan reactions on social media have been brutal. Comments like, "This league is DOA, dead on arrival," and "Without Caitlin Clark, this was never going to work," are flooding Twitter and Instagram. One particularly telling comment read, "They're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic at this point." The sponsorship situation is equally concerning. Major brands that were considering partnerships with the league are now reportedly reassessing their commitments. One marketing executive, speaking off the record, told me that several potential sponsors are in wait-and-see mode. What's particularly fascinating is the behind-the-scenes conversations that led to this moment. Sources tell me that agents were asking tough questions about the league's viability even before Clark's decision. One agent reportedly asked, "Are we getting Caitlin Clark? Because if we're not, this isn't going to work." The league's response to all this has been surprisingly muted. Their official statement thanked Plum for her interest and wished her well, but didn't address the broader implications of her departure. This silence has only fueled more speculation about the league's future. Industry analysts are now questioning the entire concept of a 3x3 league. While the format has been successful in men's basketball with the Big Three League, that like this video and subscribe to my channel. Success was built on nostalgia and former NBA stars. The unrivaled league doesn't have that luxury. They need current stars in their prime. The comparison to the Big Three is particularly relevant. That league works because it offers something different. Retired NBA stars playing a modified version of the game. The unrivaled league was trying to compete directly with the WNBA, just with a different format. Without major stars, that becomes an almost impossible sell. Let's also talk about the potential long-term impact on women's basketball as a whole. The failure of a high-profile league like this could make it harder for future innovations in women's sports to gain traction. It's not just about this league. It's about what it represents for the future of women's basketball. The next few weeks will be crucial. Sources tell me that league executives are working frantically behind the scenes to prevent more departures. But with each passing day, the challenge grows bigger. The question isn't just whether they can save the league. It's whether there's anything left to save. Now, let's dive even deeper into what this means for the future of women's basketball. The fallout from Plum's departure is just beginning. And what I'm about to share with you might change everything we thought we knew about this situation. First, let's address the elephant in the room, the player contracts. The unrivaled league had structured these deals unlike anything we've seen before in women's sports. Players weren't just getting salaries, they were getting ownership stakes. But here's the kicker. My sources tell me these ownership stakes were heavily dependent on the league's success and viewership numbers. Without Caitlin Clark as the face of the league, those projected viewership numbers took a massive hit. One industry analyst estimates they dropped by at least 60%. Now, with Plum gone, we're looking at potentially even lower numbers. This directly impacts the value of those ownership stakes that were promised to players. But it gets even more interesting. I've obtained exclusive information about the league's internal projections. Before Clark's rejection, they were expecting opening weekend viewership to hit close to 800,000. That would have been revolutionary for women's basketball. Now they're privately admitting they might struggle to hit 100,000. The sponsorship situation is equally dire. Major brands that had shown interest are now backing away. One source close to a major sports apparel company told me they've completely frozen their negotiations with the league. They were prepared to invest millions, but without the star power of Clark and Plum, those deals are evaporating. Here's something that hasn't been reported anywhere else. The league's venue contracts are now in jeopardy. They had agreements with several arenas for their 850-seat configurations, but these contracts had performance clauses. If the league couldn't guarantee certain attendance numbers, the venues could back out. With the current situation, meeting those guarantees looks increasingly unlikely. Let's talk about the player exodus that might be coming. I've learned that at least 5 other players are currently in discussions with their agents about following Plum's lead. These aren't just bench players. We're talking about all-stars, Olympians, players who could make or break the league's credibility. The timing of all this couldn't be worse for women's basketball as a whole. The sport was riding high on unprecedented attention, largely thanks to Caitlin Clark's college performances. The unrivaled league was supposed to capitalize on this momentum. Instead, it might become a cautionary tale. Here's another bombshell. The league's insurance costs are skyrocketing. With star players dropping out, insurers are raising red flags about the league's stability. One insurance executive told me, off the record, that they're treating the league as high risk now, which means higher premiums and stricter terms. The broadcasting deals are another major concern. While the league hadn't announced their broadcast partner yet, I've learned they were in advanced talks with several streaming platforms. These platforms were excited about the star power the league promised. Now, those negotiations are reportedly on ice. Looking at the competitive landscape, this situation gets even more complicated. The WNBA must be watching all this very carefully. They've already lost some viewership to college basketball this year, and the last thing they needed was another competitor in the space. But now this situation might actually strengthen their position as the undisputed leader in women's professional basketball. Let's talk about the international impact. The unrivaled league had plans to expand globally within its first 3 years. They were in talks with teams in Europe and Asia. Those plans are now effectively dead in the water. Without strong domestic success, international expansion becomes impossible. The financial model of the league is also under severe scrutiny. They were operating on what one expert called a star-driven, high-risk, high-reward strategy. Without the stars, the risk becomes unmanageable. The reward? That's looking more like a pipe dream with each passing day. Social media sentiment has been brutal. I've been tracking the hashtag #unrivaled league, and the numbers are staggering. Negative sentiment has increased by 300% since Plum's announcement. Comments like "dead before arrival" and "another failed experiment" are dominating the conversation. But here's what really concerns industry insiders: the potential impact on future women's sports initiatives. If the unrivaled league fails, it could make investors more hesitant to back similar ventures. One venture capitalist told me they're already seeing increased skepticism toward women's sports startups. The coaching staff is another aspect that's being affected. These were high-profile coaches who left other opportunities to join the league. Now they're in limbo, wondering if they made the right choice. Some are already reaching out to their old contacts, looking for backup plans. The technology investments are another casualty. The league had planned to introduce innovative viewing experiences, including AR and VR elements. They had partnerships with tech companies for player tracking and advanced statistics. All of these projects are now reportedly under review. Here's something that's not being talked about enough: the impact on local economies. The cities that were chosen as team locations were counting on the economic boost from game days. Hotels, restaurants, local businesses, they were all expecting to benefit. Those expectations are now being dramatically scaled back. The league's marketing strategy is in shambles. They had built their entire campaign around star power and innovation. Without the stars, they're left with just the innovation angle, and that's a much harder sell to casual sports fans. Let's talk about the merchandise situation. The league had already started production on jerseys and other merchandise. Sources tell me they're now sitting on thousands of items that might never see the light of day. That's millions in potential losses before they've even played a game. The player development programs are another casualty. The league had planned to invest in grassroots basketball, creating pathways for young players. Those programs are now likely to be scaled back or abandoned entirely. But perhaps the most concerning aspect is the silence from the league's leadership. Their lack of transparent communication is leading to more speculation and uncertainty. Players, coaches, and staff are left wondering about their futures. For everyone involved in women's basketball, this is more than just a failed business venture. It's a reminder that star power matters, that timing is everything, and that even the best laid plans can fall apart when key pieces start to crumble. Keep watching this space. This story is far from over, and based on what my sources are telling me, there might be even bigger revelations coming soon. The future of women's basketball could be shaped by what happens in the next few weeks. Thanks you subscribe to the channel.